Okay, so real quick tutorial on how I use a buffer to do a deep intensive clean of a floor. So I've got two buckets. I've got one with my cleaner in it and I've got one to rinse the cleaner off. Typically work with two pads, one to scrub with the cleaner and then the other one to do the rinse process with. So I've already taken my cleaner in this case, Palm & Clean Strong, and I need to dilute it out per the instructions, which is about 1 to 10. So roughly 12 ounces in a gallon, something like that. You can do a little bit stronger if you need to, but I've already got my cleaner bucket filled up. I've already got my cleaner in there, and then I've got a couple of rags to work with in that bucket. I've already got my clean water in my other bucket, and same thing, got a rag in there to do the rinsing with. So a couple different ways you could do this. I'll show you my quick lazy way because I don't have a spray bottle, but I'm going to get my pad ready, get my buffer ready, and then I'm going to put some of the cleaner on the floor. I kind of mostly wring out my rag, and then I just drip a little bit of cleaner across the floor. And again, if you want to be more precise, just do that with a spray bottle. You can put the cleaner in the spray bottle. So then I get on there. I don't let that sit too long, just in the concentrated drips before I get on there. I just want to buff that really good onto the floor. And this is just loosening up the dirt and just creating a slurry with the dirt. So it's agitating it, loosening it off the floor. It's not actually getting it up off the floor. So this first step is just scrubbing, but it's not actually removing the dirt or whatever residue you're trying to get off. So again, probably easier if you do this with a spray bottle. It's not quite as dirty, not quite as involved. So once you feel like you've gotten a good scrub on the floor and you've gone over it for a couple different passes, then now I want to actually get that dirt off the floor. So to do that, I'm going to get one of my rags here. I'm going to wring one of my cleaner rags out as good as I can, get all the cleaner that I can out of there. And I'm going to put that on the floor. Get my other pad here. Fold up all corners. I'm using terry cloth rags so I can fold up all my corners around, so I'm not whipping the edges of my rags around and hitting baseboards and stuff like that. Once I got that, now I'm going to go over and I'm actually going to pull off dirt using this method. And this is going to start to pick up that slurry of dirt onto my cleaner rag. So you can see got quite a bit of dirt on there that I picked up. I'm going to just keep throwing these rags back in my cleaner bucket, agitating them to get them cleaned off a little bit. You can, if you want, if you still feel like there's a lot of cleaner on there that you want to get off before we do the final rinse, you could just take a dry rag. So this is just a dry rag with nothing on it. And you could go over it real quick with a dry rag just to clean up the residue of your cleaner. just to prevent that cleaner from being on the floor or any sort of contaminant that you're trying to clean off of the floor that's still there. So you could buff it real quick with a dry rag if you want. You're gonna see that was white to begin with, so I'm still pulling up a little bit of dirt from that. You know, you're gonna go through a few dry rags. You can save these dry rags to use as cleaner rags. And then the final step, you just wanna make sure and rinse all of that off. So depending on the product, sometimes there's a neutralizer that gets used. Sometimes you're just rinsing that with water. So I've got just clean water in this bucket, and I am going to wring this rag out, probably 80 or 90%, somewhere in there. Get about 80 or 90% of the water out of there. Still keep it a little damp, just to rinse with. And again, it wouldn't hurt if you had extra white pads. That way you're not using the same white pad every time, just makes things go a little faster. All right, now I got the water on here, and now I'm just gonna rinse with water. You gotta get your rag on evenly or the buffer jumps around slightly on you, but it's not a huge deal. So you go over that, you know, pretty thoroughly. And just rinse that product off. Whew. And you'll see this rag, not quite as dirty, but it's still picking up a little bit of dirt. So yeah, those are really the steps. And then I take this rag, your rinse rag, you can put it back in your clean water bucket. And whenever I do, I just like agitate it around to get the cleaner and whatever contaminant and dirt off of that. So eventually my cleaning rags will get so dirty I don't want to use them. Throw those out. So then I'll take my dry rinse rags, I'll throw those in my cleaner bucket. Those will become my cleaning rags. And same thing with the rinse rags. Eventually those can become my cleaning rags once they get dirty enough. Once my cleaner gets super dirty in there, I'll switch it out for a new batch of cleaner. Once my, probably more importantly, once my rinse bucket gets really dirty, I'll just go dump that, fill it up with clean water, because I want this to be pretty clean so that my final step gets as much off of the floor as possible and neutralizes my cleaner. For the edges, you can have, you know, a separate bucket of cleaner for the edges, and I just typically use a brush. So I'm going down the edges with a pretty wet rag, you know, getting it on. I get a little bit ahead of myself just to let that soak in. And then I will use a brush like this down the edge. And I want to scrub any of that loose. So the kind of brush you use is going to be highly dependent on what you're trying to get off the floor. So once I brush it, then I can take a dry rag. You can pick up the excess cleaner with the dry rag. And then, just like when we're buffing the floor, the last step is going to be having a clean water rag. And this clean water rag is going to be used to get up that cleaner and any sort of contaminant. So, you know, and usually I'll do the edges before I get on there with the buffer just to prevent any of the dirt getting pulled out from the edges back into the floor. So, but I mean, there are a lot of different ways to get to the same result. So yeah, I do that, let it dry, and we're good to go.